You may have heard the phrase, "What got you here won't get you there." This is one of the lessons that took me a long time to learn, and I think it is actually very valuable and very applicable to lots of different things. As we were working on Dragon Age Inquisition, we reached several points in the project where I kept holding on to the processes and systems that we had been using up until that point. But as you move from pre-production into production, from production into your filing phases, you'll find that those processes are not transferable. And you need to, at various points in development, take a step back and think about what you're working on and whether or not the processes you've used up until now are still applicable. This applies to lots of things. Projects have a tendency to collect meetings that were useful for a time but have outlived their usefulness. One of the reasons why in my meetings video I talked about not allowing or discouraging recurring meetings is exactly this. Meetings tend to just go on forever, well beyond the point at which they were useful. Another example is your approval process. Early in the project, you want relatively senior people involved in the approval of assets, every asset, because you need to set the quality bar. You need to ensure that everyone is aligned and pointing in the same direction. But if you keep that approval process as you get into production and your team size gets bigger and the velocity of the team is very high, you've introduced a huge bottleneck that consistently will drag your speed down. Similarly with the prototyping process. When you're early in the project, in the prototyping phase, you want to allow experimentation and exploration, because that experimentation can lead to innovation and a new and interesting and exciting ways to solve problems and build a game. But as you get further and further into the game, the degree to which you want to allow that experimentation needs to narrow ever more. And potentially at certain phases, you may want to stop and pivot the team intentionally from exploration to execution, because the time for new answers may be over and the time for executing on the answers you already have may be here. Otherwise, you can find that you are continuously re-exploring the same space, trying new things when it's time to start making things. So you need to consider along the way whether or not the things you're doing now still make sense. At the very least, do it at each of your various gates moving between the different phases of the project. But honestly, I think it's worthwhile scheduling time every 3 to 9 months to stop and think about the things that you're doing, the things you used to get to where you are now, and whether or not those things are still useful moving forward. And in some cases, they will be, in which case you keep them and integrate them into your new processes. And in some cases, they've outlived their usefulness and it's time to set them aside and replace them with something new. But this isn't just about project development. It's also about ourselves. I've talked about focusing on your strengths and trying to cover for your weaknesses. And that's great. And that is, I think, how you should lead much of your life. But as you move into different jobs, as your roles change, as you get promoted, the strengths you need to lean into are going to be different. That ability to get your hands dirty and to get things done on an individual basis, that may not be applicable anymore because now you're in a more leadership-driven position and you need to lean into different strengths that you have. So I think this is a lesson that took me a long time to learn, and I think I still struggle with it from time to time. But just think about this. Think about where you are. Think about how you got to where you are. And then think about whether the tools you use to get to where you are the tools that are going to give you success going forward, or whether you need to set those aside and pick up different tools. If you enjoyed this, give this video a like, maybe share it with someone else you think might find it useful, and I'll see you again soon. Thank you.